you written in a carbon leakage? So you have written that it's an overuse. So then what is the difference between carbon credit? Isn't that one country is using more of a carbon than the other country? That is what a carbon credit is, because they are using more of carbon than prescribed to them, than whatever number has been given to them. They are using it more than the other. That means what? One is using more and that's why they are getting the credit. So what is then the term carbon leakage means? Hmm. Hmm. So basically, carbon leakage is what? When you are doing something in your country. Carbon leakages means what? When you are doing something in your country and this is leading to a direct impact on another country. It is leading to a direct impact on another country. This is what you call as carbon leakage. So for example, if I'm trying to put a plant, this industrial plant, this plant which I have tried to make in, or try to establish in the country, is basically having a direct impact on the other country as well, right? So this is what you call it as carbon leakage. Can you give me the best example of carbon leakage? Because earlier what we used to do, there were the countries, what European countries, what they used to do, all the kind of electronic trash, whatever was left, what they used to do, they used to dump it in the oceans nearby the continents, for example, Africa, right? So this is what, this is a direct dumping that you are doing. You're doing the dumping from your country, all the electronic waste which has been collected from your country. You are not dumping it in your own place. You are dumping it in or near the coast of another country or continent. So this was later stopped with the convention, with the help of the convention. Basel Convention was there with respect to this and it was stopped. So this is what you call it as the direct leakage, means you use of something in your country. You're trying to maybe establish a plant, you're trying to do something and then it is further impacting the other country. See the current scenario. For example, Ukraine-Russia war. This is also direct impact, which is leading all the neighboring countries of Ukraine, of Russia. They are directly impacted with what is happening between both of them. Now, the Strait of Hormuz being impacted by Iran, Israel, USA war. The other countries are also feeling they are also taking the brunt of it. And when this is happening, what will happen? It will directly impact them. Right? So when I talk about that, then two countries are involved. When one country is involved in something which is also impacting the other countries in the terms of the emission, in terms of all the greenhouse gases, this is known as a carbon leakage. So when we have a carbon credit, the term that we are having is carbon leakage. So write down carbon leakage when strict climate policies in one country. Carbon leakage occurs when strict climate policies in one country carbon leakage occurs when strict climate policies in one country or organization lead to an increase in emissions. It lead to an increase in emissions in another country. So why are they producing? Why are they leak? Why there is the increase in the activities in other country? Because in your country it has been completely banned. There are stringent policies now being imposed by the government for using the carbon. And when this is being done, what will happen? It will directly impact the other countries, right? So this is how, what this is showing the direct impact it will be causing. So if, for example, it is banned in your country to do certain things, what you will do, you will try to figure out the vicinity areas where you can do the same activity, right? So this is what is happening in this. Write down, carbon leakage occurs when stricter climate policies in one country or organization lead to an increase in emissions in another country. Full stop. For example, companies in countries with strict, for example, companies in countries with strict environmental policies, may move their production units in another country, with looser policies, or less stringent policies. You can use any of these words, with looser policies or less stringent policies. Causing an increase in greenhouse gas emissions. Next term, write down carbon offset. Write down carbon offset. Okay. Carbon offset refers to, offset का क्या मतलब है? It means that the amount of the CO2 which you have increased by using certain fossil fuels. So CO2 level has been increased. You want to decrease the CO2 level now by doing certain activities, by doing implementing certain policies wherein the CO2 will reduce, right? For example, 100 amount of CO2 that has been released in the environment, you want to compensate it by establishing some solar parks or installing some solar parks in an area, or biofuel policies. For example, what we are using these days, there is a national biofuel program, right? Or ethanol, E20 program. What does it mean? That there will be a blending of 20% of ethanol in the petrol, and it will lead to what? Decrease in greenhouse gases, right? So this is what you call it as carbon offset, wherein you have only increased the level of the carbon dioxide. You have done certain kind of activities wherein the carbon dioxide has been emitted, and you want to offset it. How will you offset? By doing certain activities which will further decrease, maybe by afforestation or any sort of a carbon sequestration. Carbon sequestration means wherein you are taking up the carbon from the atmosphere, right? So write down, a carbon offset refers to the reduction, avoidance. Carbon offset refers to reduction, avoidance, or sequestration reduction, avoidance or sequestration of 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide, 1 metric reduction of 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide equivalent. You write down equivalent like this also, CO2 and small e, reduction of carbon dioxide equivalent greenhouse gases elsewhere, greenhouse gases elsewhere to compensate the carbon dioxide, to compensate for the emission produced elsewhere, to compensate for the emissions produced elsewhere. What does it mean? That it is not necessary, please understand this point, this is not necessary that where you have produced the carbon or in which country you have produced the carbon, you have to compensate in that particular country also only. It can happen that you are producing the carbon in one country and you can offset in some other part of the country or maybe in some other country as well. For example, in India, if I am, maybe USA is putting up some plant, right? And they know that in the process there will be a lot of release of the carbon dioxide. They can ask India and they can help India in setting up some solar power plants, right? These mega projects which has been set up in the different parts of the country, and India being a budding a country, and it's taking quite initiative in the solar panels, solar parks, solar mega projects. All of this will help them to do what? Offset it, right? So it can happen. There could be a question like that to confuse you in UPSC, that whether only in one country it can happen where you are producing there only it is mandatory to offset it. No, this is not necessary. If you are producing it in one country, it can be offset in other countries as well. So write down. देखिए, carbon offsets are measured. Carbon offsets are measured in metric tons of carbon dioxide. Carbon offsets are measured in metric tons. They are measured in metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, comma, which represents various greenhouse gases, such as CO2, CH4, N2O, nitrous oxide, then PF6, HFC, PF6, comma, HFCs, PFCs, and PFCs. Write down. Carbon offset initiative involved. Carbon offset initiative involved. Carbon offset initiative involved reducing carbon, carbon offset initiative involved reducing carbon emissions through projects, reducing carbon emissions through projects such as planting trees, forest conservation, such as planting trees, forest conservation, etc. Forest conservation, etc. Right? Now, with respect to this only, we are having a curve which you call it as Keeling curve, right? What is this Keeling curve is? This is important. These terms you should know, because then you can confuse all these terms with the economic curves also. What happens? These curves are being used, a lot of these terms are being used in the economy. So when you hear of this term, Keeling curve, then you might think that this is a term related to the economy only when you have not read it thoroughly, right? So what does it mean? Write down. It's a graph. It's a graph. Basically, what it is a graphical representation of CO2, graphical representation of CO2 present, CO2 present, CO2 concentration present on Earth. And so far, this is one of the most accurate curve, which is telling us how much CO2 has been present in the atmosphere. Okay, it has been named after Dr. Charles David Killing. It has been named after Charles David Killing, the person who created it. And hence, the name is after this person, David Killing. David Killing. Okay. Now write down next term, green grabbing. Green grabbing. What is this term called? Green grabbing. Write down green grabbing. Okay. See, this is a kind of a paradox that one is having and one is living with it. Then on one hand, we want to decrease the level of the CO2, but decreasing the level of CO2 is not that easy. Reason being, the things are so intermingled that it is very difficult to separate them altogether. For example, there are certain communities who are entirely dependent on the forest, on the ecosystem in order to do their livelihoods. But the point with this is, and in fact, lot of revenue that we draw is from the direct exploitation of the natural resources. But then there is a dilemma which comes in whether we should protect the environment or we should keep on doing our revenues with the revenues which are drawing from the use of the natural resources or not. So this kind of dilemma which is being created is actually doing what? It is creating a lot of problem for the forest communities, right? For the livelihoods, for example, there will be certain people who are directly dependent, we are forest dwellers, they will directly dependent upon them. Certain tribes who know nothing but they have been grown and they only know the forest, the nature that they have been grown up in. Then there could be certain, you call it as the businessman maybe, so who have been already dependent upon that area for their livelihoods. So all of this is what it is quite intermingled in together, and you cannot separate them very strictly, right? There's no strict separations between them that you can create. So what happens if in case, for example, if I have to install a solar park, just imagine I have to install a solar park. What I'll do, I'll try to take away this place, right? And I'll put install a what? All the necessary items needed for creating it, okay? Or maybe for some other purpose, I am trying to take an area. In the name of what? In the name of creating a sustainable environment, in the name of reducing the CO2 level present in the atmosphere. So this process is known as a green grabbing. Grabbing means what? You are in the name of producing what? In the name of reducing the CO2, you're trying to grab an area for some purposes. Okay, so write down. It refers to what happens? For what? When I got it right now. What's that? Okay, what is that? Okay. Okay, it's a test message. Okay. Okay. All right. Write down. Green grabbing. It refers to appropriation. Appropriation. Okay. It's a appropriation. Green grabbing is a appropriation of land and natural resources. Green grabbing is a appropriation of land and natural resources under the pretext of under the pretext of under the pretext of sustainable development, under the pretext of, write down, sustainable development or environmental protection, under the pretext of certain sustainable development or environmental protection. Write down. The term is increasingly used to describe how carbon offsetting, how carbon offsetting, carbon credits, how carbon offsetting, carbon credit, comma, afforestation, comma, afforestation, comma, biodiversity reserves, comma, solar and wind energy parks, solar and wind energy parks displaces local communities. They displaces local communities. Full stop. These projects often threaten livelihoods. These projects often threaten livelihoods. लोगों को क्या होगा? What happened to the people? People who have been dependent on that, they do not know what is this carbon dioxide offset and all, and for what purposes they are being used. They know that this is a land from where they have been drawing their livelihood. They have been dependent from like ages. Like their forefathers have been dependent on the same area for the livelihood, and they know that only. So this is the point. This is the kind of a dilemma which has been created in the society. Right on, these projects often threaten livelihoods, comma, food security, and indigenous knowledge system, especially in ecologically sensitive, especially in ecologically sensitive or tribal areas, or tribal areas, ecologically sensitive or tribal areas. Plus, एग्जाम्पल लिखेंगे, एशियन डेवलपमेंट बैंक फंडेड, एशियन डेवलपमेंट बैंक फंडेड Assam Solar Park, Asian Development Bank funded Assam Solar Park, was opposed by local communities. Asian funded Assam Solar Park, Asian funded Assam Solar Park was opposed by indigenous communities. was opposed by indigenous communities. In the name for green grabbing indigenous land. For green grabbing indigenous land. Right? Okay. Just on the same line, we have another term which you call it as just like a carbon leak, we have a biodiversity leak. There is a term called biodiversity leak. Write down. Biodiversity leak. लिखिए. Write down. Unintended. Write down. Unintended displacement of. Unintended 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 Okay. So with respect to the biodiversity, what does it mean? Unintended. UNINTENDED. Unintended displacement of environmentally harmful activities. Unintended displacement of that is unintended means what? You're not intentionally doing something. This is unintended displacement of environmentally harmful activities from one region to another due to conservation efforts. Right. So this is basically what in certain countries has been banned totally to establish any kind of a land or for the usage, any kind of a human activity, etc. in this particular area has been banned, right? Well, it will be banned. What will happen? The whole burden will come to the other areas. Now, these other areas could be your own country. It could be your own, the states within your own country. It could be different countries as well. Maybe people can switch to the alternatives. People who are non-vegetarians, they are relying on certain things. Now they will start depending upon the seafood or maybe fishes. They start importing more of the fishes. So this is what there's a direct impact which is leading to that. But we do not know what is actually leading it, because the consumerism which changes, it changes because of certain reasons. Earlier also, now what is there? The consumer behavior has been changed with respect to the globalization. Now people are no more relying on the the traditional food that we used to had. Now we are basically relying on the other sort of junk food as well for our daily uh, for the daily needs. So the point is that you have to understand that there is no direct, you're not even, you will not even get to know about this, right? This is something which will come and impact you, and you will not going to get to know about all these things which is happening. So all of this is what it is linked, right? So similarly, if there are stricter bioconservation efforts which are being led in particular area, you know this particular state will not allow this to happen, then you have to switch it to other area so that you can conserve it, right? Conservation is happening in one place. Now you are switching to other place for your demands, or maybe you are importing more of the items of the different countries, and it will lead to a bigger impact. ठीक है, आपकी food habits change हो जाएंगे, आपका जो demands है वो change हो जाएगा, and there will be lot of burdening which will happen on the other states. Write down, लिखिए. Unintended displacement of environmentally harmful activities from one region to another due to conservation efforts. It occurs, second point, it occurs when protecting or restoring land. It occurs when protecting or restoring land in one area leads to increased exploitation. It leads to increased exploitation. It leads to increased exploitation in one area, leads to exploitation or degradation elsewhere, comma, often in biodiversity rich regions. For example, restriction on agriculture in protected zone. For example, restriction on agriculture in protected zone may increase the demand for imported food. They may increase the demands of imported foods from other countries. It may increase the demand for imported food from other countries. Comma, shifting the environmental burden to other countries. Shifting the environmental burdens to other countries. This undermines global biodiversity goals. This undermines global, because in the haste to protect your area, you are burdening some other places. So this is not completing the cycle. Cycle in sense, you are trying to understand that you want to conserve your area, but at the same time you are burdening the other area. Is it fulfilling the whole idea? What is the whole idea? That you have to conserve globally. So if one thing is getting impacted in one area and same thing is also burdening other area, it will not lead to the sustainable goal that we have been talking about, that we have to achieve by 2030, because we've taken what? The global idea of the conservation. This global idea of conservation has been defeated Just because we are thinking about ourselves, we are not thinking about the other country which is at the same time being impacted because of our activities. So write down restriction, for example, restriction on agriculture. This undermines global biodiversity goals. This undermines global biodiversity goals as net habitat destruction, as net habitat destruction continues. Net habitat destruction continues despite localized efforts. Despite localized efforts. Okay. So can we talk about some climate change mitigation strategies, right, with respect to it? What do you mean by mitigation? To reduce, right? Mitigation strategy means whatever climate change is happening, how can we offset it? So there are different strategies that one needs to know when you're talking about the climate change mitigation. Although we know that there are solar power plants being installed, there are wind power plants that have been talked about, there are hydropower projects, all of this is said and done. But the point is we also need to understand that what are the bigger terms that has been used in terms of mitigation. For example, if I talk about the sequestration program, although there would be a lot of sequestration program that will be done by the different countries, but what is sequestration in the whole sense? What does it mean? So all of it which is required to know. Carbon sequestration. This is one of the strategy of mitigation. Now sequestration means what? It can be done through the oceans, right? This has been acting as a CO2 reserve, right? So there are certain areas which will do what? Which will take in the carbon. And when they will take in the carbon from the atmosphere, it will reduce the level of the carbon in from the atmosphere and the other areas. So write down, carbon sequestration is the practice of removing. It is the practice of removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. This is the practice of removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and storing it. Hyphen. It is one of the many approaches. It is one of the many approaches taken to tackle. It is one of the many approaches which has been taken to tackle the carbon change. It is one of the many approaches which has been taken to tackle carbon change. Write down. Carbon sequestration naturally can happen in two basic forms. Carbon sequestration can naturally happen in two basic forms. One is your biologically. One, it can happen through biological manner or through geological, right? So it can happen in two ways. One is your biologically, another one is your geologically. Write down. Write down biologically first. Biologically. When CO2 is trapped / taken by natural, is taken by natural resources, not natural resources, don't write, taken by plants, write down, taken by plants slash grasslands slash forest slash forest, plants slash grasslands slash forest, and bracket में लिखेंगे natural environment, where we do not need to do anything. We just need to see whether this has been dismantled or not, or maybe this has been intervened or not by the humans. So that is all we need to keep a regular check on this. Otherwise, it is a natural process of the environment, of the nature, to take in the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, right? Next, write down. This includes, write down, this includes what is known as carbon sinks. This includes what is known as carbon sinks. This is also known as indirect or passive form of sequestration. This is also known as indirect or passive form of sequestration. Write down. Geological carbon sequestration. Geological carbon sequestration is where stores are being created, stores or kind of a depression is being created in the rocks, and carbon is stored, there, and carbon is stored there, right? So what are you forming in this? So this includes what is known as carbon sinks, right? And how you are preserving geologically. It happens when CO2 is stored in places such as underground geological formation or rocks, or either you can write geological formation rocks. Underground geological formation or rocks. Please add rocks or. This is underground. Underground geological formation. What do you understand by underground geological formation? In this, you will create some kind of depression in the earth, right? In the crust, you will try to create some, you will dig an area, right? And you will store all of this here. There are countries who are working on this. For example, Ireland, Iceland, are the countries who are actively working on these projects, and they have been successful. We will understand the methodology to conserve all these through the methods, but first try to analyze that how it has been done. So first we will see the formation, how we have to differentiate between the biologically and geologically carbon sequestration method. Okay, under this only, when it is being taken, for example, plants, grasslands, forests, natural environment in total, they are sinking it in a passive form. You also call it as a carbon sink. This is an important term which you will find it everywhere in the environment and also in the newspapers. If you go to the newspaper, Hindu or Indian Express, every one or other day there is a mentioning of this word called carbon sink. So these areas, forest, grassland, they act as a natural, what? They naturally trap the CO2, right? They are also known as a passive form of reducing the carbon present in the atmosphere. You also call it, there's a one term for it, which you call it as carbon sink. Your mangroves act as a carbon sink. So these carbon sinks are what? This is the total, this is the term that has been given to all of it, right? So these are natural. Write down carbon sink ka definition likhiye. A carbon sink is a natural or artificial reservoir. A carbon sink is a natural or artificial reservoir. It's a natural or it will take into account. Okay. Now write down. A carbon sink is a natural or artificial reservoir that absorbs and stores more carbon dioxide from atmosphere, that absorbs and stores more carbon dioxide from atmosphere, then it releases, helping to mitigate climate change, by reducing the concentration of carbon dioxide / greenhouse gases. Okay, the concentration of carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases. Now, which are the natural sinks? The natural sinks are your oceans, mangroves, very good, forest, mangroves, grasses, grasslands, soil, very good. These all are your natural sink. Then if I talk about the artificial sink, they are, how do you define artificial sink? They will be unmineable mines, right? The mines which have been not unmineable, जहाँ पे आप नहीं जा सकते. Geologically, the terrain is so difficult that you cannot reach over there, and then they are left untouched. That is known as unmineable mines. These are artificial sinks, or you are creating some kind of underground formation. Please revise, and if you have any doubt, let me know. Then I'll come quickly switch to the carbon sequestration part.
Ma'am,
Yes.
I have a doubt, ma'am.
Yes.
Regarding this industrial usage of this carbon products,
Hmm.
ma'am, why we need to reduce this thing instead of we can transform it the CO2 or other greenhouse gases into liquid and solid forms, right? In the
Right.
sense, in the solid form of CO2 is much more useful in coolants in nuclear projects.
Okay.
And also industrial blasting to clean the surfaces of many materials, and it can be used in fridges.
Hmm.
It can even replace the CFC gases.
Hmm.
We can probe that way, right? Why we need to reduce in the industrial development of this carbon greenhouse gases reduction.
So greenhouse gases reduction, as I told you, they are potent in sense they will increase the they will increase the temperature. So when they will increase the temperature, automatically
The gaseous form. In the
Yes,
gaseous, they're
in
going
the
to increase
gaseous form,
temperature.
yes, yes, in the gaseous form, yes, definitely. In the
But in
gaseous
high pressure
form,
and low temperature, they can be considered to liquids and gases, solids, right?
right.
Liquid CO2 and solid CO2. Solid CO2 is more dry use as a dry ice. You're going to use it to store the medicines, packaging. It
So
will be
that
much
is,
more useful.
see, the usage of the carbon that you are talking is a different topic altogether. We are talking about only the gases. That's why I have used the word greenhouse gases. We
Yes,
are,
ma'am. That's why.
we
Why
are,
can't we just reduce this? I mean, like, why can't we reduce this greenhouse gases to liquids and solids from instead of keeping them it as like
okay, okay. So you are saying that why can't we reduce the whole of the gases which are present in the dry ice form? That is what your question is, right?
yes, ma'am.
But understand, is it feasible to do that? I
Yes,
know
ma'am.
the
Very
idea is
peaceful.
good. The idea is good, but a kind of investment which will be required in order to reduce it to the dry ice, that also we have to see that whether if we keep such a huge, first of all, the idea has to be feasible. Whatever idea you decide, the investment, everything, and the way we are going to convert it has to be feasible. Otherwise, the idea will just look good on the in the books, but not while you implement it, right? So first point is that. Second is we have to also see what could be the repercussions of the dry ice. We cannot just directly say because the dry ice is of some sort of a use in medicines or maybe there could be other applications of it. It is completely safe. Just like we had an idea of CFCs, that we said that it is usable and we can use it in the refrigerators and there will be no increase of the temperature. But later on we figured out that there was a hole in the ozone layer which happened, right? So we have to see all the repercussions which can a product can lead to. In small amount, it is good to go, no doubt about it. But when you talk about the amount of the CO2 which we are talking, the volume is huge. It's like the whole air which has been trapped around the globe. That is what we are talking about, right? So first you have to see is it feasible. Idea looks good in the book, whether this can be done or not. But how much feasible it is, that is what we have to
It will
check.
be economically more feasible, ma'am. I don't know about this other products, but it will be economically more feasible because
Hmm.
whatever the industries, they're going to need water as a
Hmm.
coolant. So
Hmm.
they go to most ecotone zones.
Okay.
If they
Hmm.
go to more barren lands or distinct parts,
Hmm.
thus by using CO2, they can be acquire the resources much cheaper.
Okay. Hmm.
So
All
whatever
right.
the water, I mean, like underground water, they'll be safe, and
Hmm.
the water cycle won't be disturbed. And as a result, and the industry development will also be not disturbed. They both will separate.
All right. Have you seen this somewhere? Have you read this particular article, or have you seen the feasibility of this particular idea that you are bringing up to me? Have you seen it or read it somewhere?
Ma'am, this similar idea is like electric vehicles. See, in
Okay.
USA, electric vehicles are like a normal vehicles, but in India, it's not like that because
Mm-hmm.
electrical vehicles suitable time like the stations for them to charge and replace the batteries are
Correct.
widely available.
Correct.
So
But
there's a
charging
rapid
point,
development.
but I think the charge late sooner or later get we have to be compliant with that, right? The electric vehicle these days it's not working for India because of many reasons. One of the reasons that you only told me that a lot of charging points are not available. So for the people, it is not convenience. Convenience is also one of the things that people would see, right? So definitely that is what we have to provide it to the people. Otherwise, the whole thing will come to standstill. So one of the reasons that you are telling is justified, but the point is that the other idea that we were having a discussion about is something which I think is not feasible and economically viable or not, that I have to check. Because if some institution is talking about this, then I have to really check that whether it is feasible or not, and what could be the repercussions of the dry ice. Because we cannot just totally say that dry ice is completely safe.
Dry ice will be in the normal temperature, it's going to convert into CO2. There will be no other components. It directly comes into CO2. It's
Okay,
into the atmosphere. No other products will be there.
okay, okay. You mean that byproducts won't be there?
Yes, ma'am. It's just like highly high pressurized and cooled
Hmm.
CO2. That's it.
Got it, got it, got it. Okay.
Just sublimates, ma'am. CO2 directly sublimates.
Yeah, yeah. Sublimation is happening now. Directly, there is no intermediate product. There's no liquid gas, etc. There's no liquid in between. That is what you're saying. I
Yes,
got
ma'am.
your point. I got it. Sublimation process is there. Okay. Okay, I'll get back to you on this.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other thing? Right. So there are certain methods that we have taken up for the carbon sequestration, right? So what is this carbon sequestration method? So when one of the very popular methods that we have talked but not implemented in all the countries, because this requires a lot of investment, technological know-how in order to implement it. One is your carbon capture and storage, right? So carbon capture, utilization and storage, that we will talk about it in the other class because we are not left with a lot of time. So these methods that have been used. So basically, which country is implementing this? It's not us. So there is a country in Europe, the Iceland and Ireland. They are two countries, and Germany as well. They're highly implementing in all these strategies in order to sequester. So what they are doing, all the carbon which is present anywhere in the Europe, what they will do, they will carry it. There is a proper route that they have taken. They will carry it to the source. Source is what? The depression, a kind of a, I told you about the underground formations, right? So all these underground formations which has been done, what will happen? They are trying to basically trap the CO2 in that. Okay? CO2 trap means whatever the CO2 which has been taken at the source, you will take it in any form, you will take it in a gaseous form or whatever form they are having, they will take it to the source area, the area where they have to actually dump it. In this region, they will dump it and they will try to do what? They will try to preserve it. So this is how you are taking a CO2 from one area to another area. And there are famous projects with respect to this in Iceland and Ireland where they are actively working on this, right? With respect to the other countries, see, Europeans are extremely sensitive, I would say, and also they are highly active in these sense. As compared to the other developed countries like USA, they are not highly active in the conservation, in the climate change strategies. Reason being, Europeans have been always dependent on this notion that the population, the resources should be judicially used. Although in the industrial time they have used it haphazardly, we know that already in the industrial revolution. But the point is now they are so much sensitive, they are so much conserved in that terms that they are actively working on the better technologies in order to make the area habitable, in order to make the earth habitable. It was also said that you would require 1 point something number of 1 point something earth, right, in order to survive the number of people who are dependent on it right now. So when you're talking about such, when you're giving such statement, it means now it's a high time to think about it. In fact, to rethink of the things that you are doing, the activities that you're doing on the planet. So these are the initiatives that has been taken. We will artificially talk about all of these, but definitely I'll get into the depth in the next class. So this is one. So this is what you call it as carbon storage facilities or carbon storage. It's a carbon capture and storage. The full form of it is carbon capture. You will capture the carbon from one area and you will store it from another area, right? The full form is carbon capture and storage. Next is your carbon capture, utilization and storage. So there's an upgrade of the carbon capture and the storage, because now you're not just using, you're not just storing it, you're not just capturing it, but you're also trying to use this carbon which you have collected from somewhere and then finally store it, right? So this is the upgradation of the earlier one, carbon capture storage. At the level, you have increased the level and now you are also capturing, you are utilizing in between and storing. So this is what has been done. The next idea that has been taken by the UNFCCC, that is the reduction emission from deforestation and forest degradation. This is the initiative taken by UNFCCC, which is your United Nations Framework for Climate Change. This is, they have taken REDD+. So this is what? Reduction of deforestation. Why? Because as you know, they are acting as a natural carbon sinks, right? So we cannot lead certain areas to get the barren. So there are the areas where lot of afforestation is present, which are actually working as a carbon sequester, natural carbon sequester. So definitely nobody would like to disturb it. And also we need to regulate it on the regular basis. Next is your wetlands and peatland conservation, right? What is your wetlands? Everybody knows what is wetlands. We have done this part already. Wetlands are again, the transitional area between the terrestrial ecosystem and aquatic ecosystem. What do you mean by that? The wetlands are we also call that as the kidneys of the earth. Why? Because they are infiltrating the pollutants. They are acting as a recharge of groundwater. They are recharging the groundwater. They're taking in the pollutants and acting as like a filtration they are doing, right? All of this is doing what? This is all, they are also capturing carbon. They also act as a natural carbon sink. In the carbon sink, the example that we have written in the natural carbon sink, you can also add the wetlands as a natural carbon sink. Why? Because the soil, the peatlands, wetlands are what? Your all marshy areas, your peatlands, your swamps, all of this soil, etc., and mangroves are also part of it. They will naturally capture the carbon dioxide present in the atmosphere. So all of this is acting like that. So wetland as a part of it is also important. Recently, we have introduced 99th Ramsar site in India, in Uttar Pradesh. You must be knowing about this, right? So this is with respect to knowing the importance of the wetland. We are actively participating in this, we are active in this, and we are also introducing different Ramsar sites also. Next is your billion tree campaign. These are the small campaigns that many institutions have started implementing with respect to United Nations Environmental Program. They have started this billion tree program. That is, they have taken a target that we will try to set up. We'll try to at least plant how many trees? 1 billion. Okay. Then there is a bond challenge again, that is aiming to bring 150 million hectares of degraded and deforested landscape into restoration. So there are certain methods that has been used. Now there's another method with respect to all of this, which is called direct capture, right? Direct air capture. What is this direct air capture? That here we are not going to take it from the source. Wherever we are, for example, I am standing at this place from where I am taking the class. Here only, I will capture the air and try to reduce the CO2 level over here. So there is no sourcing which is being done from the place, and then there is no destination. Wherever we are, for example, in this area, I want to decrease the carbon dioxide, I can do that over here. This is the source. This is the particular area where I can do that. So all of this is what the methodologies, the strategies in order to conserve it, right? Okay. So all of these topics that I have talked about, they come with their own setbacks, right? Drawbacks. So when I talk about the carbon capture and storage, definitely there must be a setback of it. That's why we have upgraded to utilization. With respect to others also, there must be some other setbacks. That's why we have talked about it, what is happening in this. Can you still see the board? Okay. So with respect to this, so what will happen? We have to see how it has been directly impacted, right? So take down 1 P by Q. Write down. One main question, write down, please. This is more of an analytical question, that carbon storage strategies are not being able to bring significant changes in CO2 level reduction, in CO2 level reduction justify. So now you need to justify whether this statement is correct or not. If it's correct, then you will support the answer with respect to this, and you will give the evidences supporting your claims that okay, how they have been able to reduce it, how they have been not able to reduce it, and if in case you're not aligning with the statement which has been given to you, then you will write the opposite. Okay, just prepare the framework for it, and then we'll have a discussion of it in the next class. So I have given them now. Have you not received them? Okay, I'll tell the admin department then. It will get uploaded soon. Okay, thank you so much, class.